Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to crochet this really pretty white and black sweater. I'll be making a small in this tutorial, but sizes X small to 3X large are also included in this video, and I've also included in the written pattern that I have linked down below. But here are the supplies you're going to be needing. So beginning on this pattern, I have my category for yarn. We're going to begin with the white color first. I also have my 5mm hook. The first thing that we're going to do is make a slip knot, and you can begin this any way you would like. After this slip knot, we're going to make a chain of 55. To make a chain, you just want to yarn over and pull through. Again, just yarn over and pull through until you have 55 chains in total. Once you have finished up your chain of 55 with your white yarn, we're now going to switch colors to our black yarn. To do that, I'm just going to yarn over and just pull through, just like this. Now with our black yarn, we're now going to make a chain of 57, so that's 2 chains. Just keep on working these chains until you have a total of 57. Once you have finished your chains all the way across, this is where we changed our color in the middle. We're now going to be beginning on row 1, which is very simple. Skipping the very first chain that we made and inserting a hook into the second chain, we're going to be working a half double crochet. To work a half double crochet, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook into that second chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. Doing this again, yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Now you just want to repeat doing these half double crochets. You want to do that all the way across until you have reached 1 chain from the end of our black yarn. So I'm going to do that, and then I will see you guys back to show you guys how to change yarn. So I have just made a back here. I did these half double crochets coming all the way along my chain, and now I only have 1 black chain remaining before we change color. So to change color, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that last black chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now I'm going to drop the black yarn, and then now yarn overing with the white yarn, I'm going to yarn over and then pull through all 3 to change color. And we are going to be carrying our yarn throughout this pattern, so I'm just going to pick up my black yarn. Now from here, all you want to do is just work these half double crochets with our white color. And you want to do that all the way across our chain until the end. And so I will see you guys back once I have reached all the way to the last chain. Once you have reached the end of these half double crochets coming all the way down your chain, we're now just going to chain 1 and turn our work. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch for the rest of the pattern. Now moving on to row 2, skipping this first turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to do once again these half double crochets, and we're going to work these all the way across until you have 1 stitch remaining from our white stitch. So I'm just going to work that up, and then I'll see you guys back. So I have now worked across my row until I have one stitch, this white stitch at the end remaining. So once we have this one stitch, we're going to change color. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop. I'm going to drop that white yarn, yarn over with the black yarn, pull through all 3 loops. Now we have officially changed our color. You probably guessed it by now. We're just going to work these half double crochets into each stitch all the way across until you have reached the end of your row. Once you have reached the end with these half double crochets with our black color, same thing that we did for row 1, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Moving on to our last repeat row, which is row 3. Row 3 is basically the same thing that we did for row 2, except that we're starting with the black color instead of the white color. So skipping this first turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to do these half double crochets all the way across our row until we have one stitch from the end of this black color. And then I'm going to show you guys how to chain. I now have one black stitch, so I'm going to change my color. I'm just going to insert my hook, yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, then yarn over with our white color, pull through all 3 loops. And now just work these half double crochets with our white color into each stitch all the way across until the end, and then chain 1 and turn your work. So once you have finished up working row 3, to continue this pattern for our body portion, you now just want to repeat row 2 and row 3 until you have a total of 58 rows for your bodice. Then you can make any number of rows to lengthen or shorten your work. Now I'm going to work up my 58 rows, and then I'll see you guys back once I am all done. So I have just made it back here with my 48 rows coming all the way across, alternating my white and then my black yarn. This is what my 48 rows are looking like. So from here, we are actually not going to cut and fasten off just yet. We're going to continue directly to making the first front panel. So let's go ahead and get started on the first front panel. So moving on to the first front panel, I have already chained 1 and turned my work. So moving on to row 1, we're just going to work these half double crochets with our black yarn. The only difference is that we're only going to go into 28 stitches across our row. So we're not going to go all the way across, we're only going to go into 28 stitches and then chain 1 and turn your work. Once you have worked these 27 stitches, you can just chain 1 and turn your work. So to continue this pattern from row 2 to row 5, all you want to do is just work these regular half double crochet rows with our black yarn until once again you have a total of 5 rows. So I'm just going to work up my 5 rows, and then we're going to get started on doing some decreases. But I'm going to do those 5 regular half double crochet rows, and I'll see you guys back once I'm all done. So I have made it back here with my 5 rows of these regular half double crochet rows. Now moving on to row number 6, we're going to be doing a decrease row. The first thing that we're going to do is beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work those half double crochets all the way across, except you want to make sure that you're leaving 2 stitches at the end of your row. So I'm going to go all the way across my row until I have 2 stitches, and then I'll see you guys back once I reach the end. So once you have reached the end and you have 2 stitches remaining, into these last 2 stitches of our row, we're going to be doing a half double crochet decrease. To work a half double crochet decrease, just yarn over, Insert your hook into that second to last stitch, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into that very last stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 4. I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. You should now have 26 stitches in total. Moving on to row number 7, into this first stitch we're going to do another half double crochet decrease. So once again, just yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all of 4. Now from here for row 7, you just want to work these regular half double crochets until you have reached the very end of your work, and then just chain and turn your work. So once you have finished up row 7 with that decrease into the first stitch and then half double crocheted all the way down your row, to continue this pattern for our neckline, you just want to repeat those last 2 rows, which is row 6 and row 7, until you have a total of 13 rows. So I'm just going to work up my next decrease row until I have 13 rows in total, and then I'll see you guys back once I am all done to cut and fasten off. So I have now finished up working all of my decreases, and now we should have a total of 13 rows. After you have done these 13 rows, I did go ahead, cut and fasten off, as you guys can see. Once we have our first front panel all done, we're now going to be moving on to working the back panel along this side. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now getting us started on working the back panel, I have my black yarn. I'm going to first make a slip knot. You can do this any way you would like. Once you have made your slip knot, we're going to insert our hook into the very first stitch, first unworked stitch of our back panel. So I'm just going to insert my hook just like this. So this is the stitch that you should have worked for our first front panel. Then I just inserted my hook into that first unworked stitch. From here, just slip stitch to secure, so just yarn over and pull through everything. So now, beginning on row 1, I'm going to work a half double crochet into this very first stitch. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, and I do want to weave my white yarn through, and then just pull through, work another half double crochet. Just like this, just putting the white yarn as well. Just like this. Now you want to work these half double crochets all the way across and then change your color as you normally would to your white color. And you want to do this until you have 56 stitches in total, all the way from this first stitch to changing your color to the white yarn over here. You want to have a total of 56 stitches by the end. So I'll work that up and then I'll see you guys back once I reach the end. So I have made a back here and I worked 56 stitches, changing my color in the middle to the white yarn all the way down. Now to continue this pattern, you just want to continue on working half double crochet rows, basically continuing what we worked for the body portion until you have a total of 13 rows for your back panel. Very simple. We're not going to be doing any kind of decreases or anything fancy, just working those regular half double crochet rows, changing your color in the middle. So I'll go ahead and work that up off camera, then I'll see you guys back shortly. So I have made it back here and I just finished up working my 13 rows for my back panel. Once I reached the end, I did go ahead, cut and fasten off, as you guys can see. So once we have our back panel and our first front panel that we did on this side, we're now going to move directly to working the second front panel over here. So now let's go ahead and get started on the second front panel. Now moving on to the second front panel, I have my white yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot. This side is very, very similar to what we did on the first side. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook right into this very first unworked stitch. Just like this. Slip stitch to secure, so just yarn over and pull through everything. Moving on to row 1, I'm just going to chain 1. Now we do want to carry out our black yarn even though we're not going to be using it. So beginning into this very first stitch, I'm going to be working those regular half double crochets all the way across my row until the end, chain 1 and turn my work. By the end of this row, you should have a total of 28 stitches, which is the same number of stitches that we had on the first front panel. But I'm just going to work these half double crochets and then I'll see you guys back once I reach the end. Once you have reached all the way down your row with your 28 stitches in total, you can now just chain 1 and turn your work. To continue this pattern for our second front panel, you just want to work regular half double crochet rows just as we did for the first time until you have a total of 5 rows. After those 5 rows, we're going to begin on doing the increases together, but I'm just going to quickly work up 4 more regular half double crochet rows and then I'll see you guys back once I have reached the end. So once you have finished up these 5 rows, we're now going to begin on doing our decreases. So beginning on row 6, into this very first stitch, we're going to do another half double crochet decrease. So once again, just yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. From here, you just want to work half double crochets until the end of your row, chain 1 and turn. I just made it to the end of row 6, so now I'm just going to turn my work around. Now beginning on row 7, we're going to work half double crochets into each stitch across until you have 2 stitches at the end of your row remaining. Once we reach the end, I'm going to show you guys how to do that decrease one more time. I now have 2 stitches at the end of my row, so I'm just going to do another decrease, chain 1 and turn. So now to continue this pattern for our second front panel, you just want to repeat those last 2 decrease rows, row 6 and row 7, until you have a total of 13 rows for your front panel, just as you did for the opposite side. I'm going to quickly finish up my second front panel and then I'll see you guys back once I am all done. So now I have just finished up working all of my decrease rows. As you guys can see, I did go ahead, cut and fasten off as usual. Once we have both of our front panels, our back panel, we're now going to set all of this piece aside and now we're going to get started on working the sleeves. So let's go ahead and get started on the sleeves. So now we're going to get started on working the sleeves with our black yarn. I'm going to make a slip knot. After this slip knot, we're going to do a chain of 21. However, you can make this sleeve however long or short you would like. I'm just choosing to make a chain of 21. Once you have finished up your chain of 21, beginning on row 1, into this second chain, we are going to work half double crochets into each chain across until you have 1 chain at the end remaining. Once you have this 1 chain at the end of your chain remaining, we're actually going to be doing an increase. So into this last chain, we're going to work 2 half double crochets. To do that, I'm just going to work 1 half double crochet, and then back inside this same loop, I'm going to work a second half double crochet for an increase. From here, chain 1 and turn. Moving on to row 2, we're going to do the same thing. Into this very first stitch, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So I'm just going to work 1 half double crochet, and then a second half double crochet into that same stitch, just like this. From here, just work regular half double crochets until the very end of your row. Once you have finished working these half double crochets until the end of your row, I'm just going to chain and turn. Moving on to row 3, beginning into this first stitch, we're going to do half double crochets into each stitch across until you have 1 stitch at the end remaining. Once you have this very last stitch at the end of your row, we're going to do another increase. So I'm going to work 2 half double crochets into this 1 stitch, chain 1 and turn your work. Now to continue this pattern for your sleeve, you just want to repeat those last 2 rows of increases, which is row 2 and row 3, until you have a total of 15 rows. I'm going to do my 15 rows of increases, and then I'll see you guys back once I am at the end. So I have just finished up working all of my increase rows. I have 15 rows in total. Now beginning on row 1, we're going to do 15 more rows, but instead of doing increases, we're actually going to be doing decreases this time. So beginning on row 1 into this very first stitch, just as I mentioned, we're going to do a decrease. Insert my hook, pull up a loop, insert my hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. From here, simply work half double crochets into each stitch all the way across until you reach the end, chain 1 and turn. Once I reach the end of these half double crochets, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn. Moving on to row number 2, beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work these half double crochets until 2 stitches at the end of our row remain. Then I'm going to do another decrease once I reach the end. Once you have these 2 stitches at the end of your row, go ahead and do another decrease, chain and then turn. Now to continue this pattern is very simple, very similar to what we did last time. You want to repeat row 1 and row 2 with those 2 decrease rows until you have a total of 15 rows for your sleeve. Once you finish those last 15 rows, you can just cut and fasten off. So I'm just going to finish up my sleeve, and then I'll see you guys back once I have reached the end. So I have just made a back here, and I finished working my last decrease rows for my sleeve. I cut and fastened off once I reached the end. So now that we have our 30 rows in total for our sleeve, you do want to repeat this a second time for both of our sleeves, of course, which I have already done right over here. Once you have both of your sleeves and your entire body portion, we're now going to go ahead and move on to the assembly. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to be moving on to the assembly process. The first thing that you want to do is that we're going to basically whip stitch our sleeves together, attach it to the side, and then whip stitch our 2 shoulder straps together. And that's all we're going to be doing for this. So to whip stitch our sleeves together, I'm just going to fold it in half, just like this. And now we're going to whip stitch all the way along the edge until the end of our work. I'm going to put it on the white side. So to whip stitch, this is what you want to do. You want to insert your hook, or insert your tapestry needle into the back loop of the first stitch, and then into the back loop of the next stitch, and just pull through. Doing this again, coming back around, inserting my hook into the back loop and into the next back loop, and then just pull straight through. Into the back loop, into the next back loop, pull through. And then you just want to do this whip stitch all the way across your sleeve until you have reached the very end. So as you guys can see, I just finished whip stitching our sleeve in half, so this is what it is looking like. Once you have whip stitched both of your sleeves, you can now attach it to your bodice. To attach the sleeve, you just want to whip stitch all the way around the armhole until the end. Of course, you want to do that for both sleeves for both sides. And then the last thing you want to whip stitch together is just the 2 shoulder straps all the way to the end, just like this. So I'm just going to go ahead, work up my sleeves and my shoulder straps, and then I'm going to see you guys back for the next steps. So I have made a back here. I seamed everything all up. Over here, I whip stitched together the 2 shoulder straps. And this is what both of my sleeves are looking like. I went all the way down and then around the armhole to connect. All the way down and then around the armhole to connect on both sides. So once we have everything assembled, we're now going to move directly to working the front border. So now let's get started on that. So now we're going to get started on working the front border. So I have my white yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot. From here, you just want to insert your hook into the very bottom corner of your bodice. I'm just going to insert my hook and then yarn over, pull through everything as usual. I'm going to chain 1. Now what we're going to do for this foundation row is that we're going to work half double crochets along the side rows all the way up and over until we have reached the opposite corner. To do the side rows, we're going to be working 1 single crochet in the first row and then 2 single crochets in the next row. To show you what that's going to look like, into this very first row, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet. Now into the next row right here, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So this is 1 half double crochet. And then into this same row, I'm going to work a second half double. Here's the next row. I'm going to work 1 half double crochet. And then 2 half double crochets into the next row. That's 1, and then here's the second one. Here is 1 half double crochet. And then 2 half double crochets. Now you just want to repeat working along the side of your rows again all the way up and around until you have reached the opposite corner. So I'm going to work that up and then I'll see you guys back once I reach the end. So I just finished working these half double crochets. I came all the way around and back at the end, as you guys can see. Now moving on to row 1, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Row 1 is going to be much easier. All we're going to do is just beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work half double crochets into each stitch all the way around until you once again meet back to the opposite side. We're not going to be working any weird side rows, so I'll just see you guys back shortly. So I have now finished up working my front border. We did 2 rows of half double crochets. I cut and fastened off once I reached the end. Now the very last step to our project is just going to be making the collar around here. I'm going to first make a slip knot. Now you want to insert your hook where the increases or decreases begin. So that's about right here for me. I'm just going to slip stitch to secure. Chain 1. Now beginning into this very first stitch, we're going to do another increase. Well, not another increase, we're going to do our first increase, I guess. So I'm going to work 2 half double crochets. Now I'm going to work half double crochets all the way around the neckline until I have reached the opposite end where the increases or decreases begun. So basically the opposite side where we inserted our hook. I hope that makes sense. So once you have finished working all the way around the neckline until you reach the opposite position, you do also want to end with an increase. So I'm just going to work one more half double crochet into that very last stitch. So we should have worked an increase into the first stitch and then an increase into the last stitch as well. I'm just going to chain one and turn my work. Now beginning into this very first stitch, we're going to work another increase. So I'm going to just work these 2 half double crochets. From here, you want to half double crochet into each stitch around and then work another increase once you reach the end, chain and then turn your work. So I have made it back here. Once again, I worked all the way around and I also ended with an increase. So we did an increase into the first stitch and then an increase into the very last stitch. Now you just want to repeat row 2 with these increases until you have a total of 5 rows for your collar. You can just cut and fasten off once you reach the end and that'll be the end of our sweater. But I'm going to work up my 3 more rows and then I'll see you guys back once I have finished. Well, I have just finished up the collar. I have 5 rows in total. We did increases into the first and last stitches, and this is what it's looking like. Now that is basically the end of our project. The very last thing you would need to do is just weave in all of your loose ends to finish. But yeah, that is the end of the tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But that's all guys, bye!